Hi, and welcome back to the Fortify Your Brain Summit. I'm Betsy Schroeder, your host, and today I have as my guest Brandy Gillmore. Brandy is a world-renowned mind, body, and energy expert who is most well known for her discoveries in self-healing and working with the power of the mind. Not only was Brandy able to heal herself from a wheelchair, walker, and cane, she's also been able to do something that has never been done before. She is able to coach people to use their minds to get back to healing, back-to-back healing results, even under alternative medical equipment, using only the power of the mind. Her breakthrough work has been featured in an award-winning documentary and various docu-series. Brandy speaks on stages around the world and has also given a mind-expanding TEDx talk. Brandy has a genuine heart and sincere desire to help create a better world by sharing the discoveries that changed her entire life. So welcome, Brandy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. So to start out with, can you tell us more about your story and how you became interested in the body's ability to heal itself?
Absolutely. I have to say this is the absolute last thing I ever thought that I would be doing. I could have seen myself as being an astronaut before doing this, and that wasn't even on the radar. So, definitely an unexpected change of events. At the time that I was injured, basically I had been doing network engineering and operations, and that's what I did. And I loved it. Techie, just loved working in network engineering. And I had an accident, and technically I had two. I had a car accident and a fall, and I went from like living this full life and getting to go do things and I would travel every weekend, all of these things, to literally being in bed and my entire life changed. I mean, on a good day, I could get around a bit with my wheelchair or walker or cane. And on a bad day, I didn't make it out of bed. That was my life, and on morphine every day and injured and for about almost 7 years.
Wow.
And so I got a kind of like a, oh, a dive into healing.
Yeah. Huge motivation. Oh my.
It's a huge motivation because
Mm-hmm.
after I was injured, what do? You go to the doctor, and I went to the doctor, and I was put on all kinds of medications, and they were looking at what they could do to help me. And I was told, there was nothing we could do. And I, you hear that and you think, okay, well, I'm going to get a different doctor or a different
Yeah.
specialist. And I did that. I went from another doctor to another specialist to where, after everybody kept saying there's nothing we can do for you. And they were doing, like nerve ablations. So I'd get nerve endings burned off, and infusions and trigger point injections, or, different types of injections and things that they would try to, do to help with the pain and different things like that. And that was my life. And I would even go, like, I started getting to where I want the answers. I wanted to live a full life. And so I'd go to the hospital, and they set up a team of doctors where I'd have 3, 4, 5 doctors come into the room and do an evaluation. And then they'd all put their brains together and say, okay, what can we do to help her? And they kept saying, there's nothing else we can do. And long story short, I ended up getting to be part of this trial study because I wouldn't give up. I was like, I want to do something. And by this time I had been trying like diet and supplements. Anything you could possibly think of. I was eating for my blood type. I was eating vegetarian. I was doing all of these things, and nothing was really working. And so I was looking on that end also. And basically, I think I was where a lot of people are, even during this pandemic. If you think about it, we're all kind of like, most of our world is sitting here waiting for a vaccine. And that felt like my life. Like, I was like, okay, well, there's got to be something. Somebody's going to find something. And so it was like, you kind of feel like life is on hold.
Yeah.
That's where I was. And except for I was in extreme pain on morphine.
Oh yeah.
And all of these things, and just going, okay, well, like, and it, like, it's like one day turns into another. So it wasn't like at the beginning, it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be 7 years long. Instead, it was, okay, well, I've got to find the right doctor. It's around the corner.
Yeah.
And so 1 month turned into 3 months, turned into 6 months, turned into a year. turned into, okay, let me find this doctor. Okay, let me find that doctor. What about it? And it just continued on. And again, it really, honestly, this time during COVID reminds me of that, because just watching people going, okay, let's wait for a vaccination. There's got to be a vaccine, and that's how I was. Okay, there's got to be a cure. There's got to be a cure. And then after a while, when you have enough people tell you you're not going to get better and there's nothing they can do, you start to, then years go on, you start to you lose hope,
Yeah.
and that's where I and I was looking at medical journals going, okay, where is the answer? What country? So I started looking in different countries for answers, different things like that. And eventually I got to be part of this study for a brand new procedure. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get my life back. This is it. Like, this is everything I hoped for. There's a new cutting edge research. It'd be like if they said, oh, there's a new cutting edge research for COVID and you could be a part of it or whatever else, but it was, my injury, and I was all these things. And so I go, oh my God, this is it. This is the answer. And then it didn't work out. And they told me, you can't be a part of the study. You're not going to get better.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
heart-wrenching.
I bet.
It was heart-wrenching. And I don't remember leaving the hospital that day, because basically they had wheeled me in, my wheelchair, got me prepped up for this procedure. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get my life back. This is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
And that's when, the doctor, he came in and he was like, you can't be a part of the study. We don't expect you to get better. And so from that place, I went home and I was just like, there's no point. And my brain was just on autopilot, wanting to kind of exit life. And it was just like, there's no point. I can't live like this. I don't have a future. I can't live like this amount of pain. And that's it. And as I was laying there just thinking, I don't even want to live anymore. My brain was like, well, what about the placebo? And I was like, well, wait a second. What about the placebo? We know that it works. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So they were doing this study, and then were some people going to get the treatment, and then some people were going to get the placebo? Is that how that was going to work?
Yeah, like, when they said that you get to be part of the study, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they tell you ahead of time. They say, that anytime you join a study, you might be part of the placebo group. You may get the real treatment.
Yeah.
You won't know, and so you sign this document that says, okay, I agree to take part in the study. And so, and leading up to the study, I kept thinking to myself, please don't get the placebo. Please don't get the placebo. I want the real treatment,
Yeah.
But, I didn't really think about it going in, but there I was after. And then I was like, well, what about the placebo? We know that it works a percentage of time. And so in that moment, it was like, if there was still a ray of hope that I could get better, I couldn't give up.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't get the real thing, then okay, well then it was like, there's no hope. But wait a second, what about those placebo people? How could I get in that group? Just looking at anything to just get an answer.
Oh, right. And then for people who don't know, like what is a placebo? And then like the placebo effect, that whole thing.
Basically, simply put, the placebo is like a fake treatment. So maybe a fake pill that people will get. And when they get the fake pill, they can get better. They get results as though they got a real treatment. And what's fascinating is that the placebo has been proven more than anything. I mean, every single drug, every single thing that comes out on the market is for medical purposes is put up against the placebo, and so when you think about it, the placebo has shown back-to-back results. So we have like magic in our brains. And it was just like, how do I tap in? If my brain somehow has the ability to do that, how do I do it on purpose? How do I get that to work?
So
and
then,
so that's,
how did you, what got you to the next level then? Or what changed in your brain at that point where you're like, okay, the placebo effect, now how do I use it?
Totally. And then I was lost because then I started looking at it and going, okay, this is a lot of data and it works, and it shows that it works over and over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, it works, but now what? And,
Yeah.
and now what? And so then I started going, and it was so much data. And I go, okay, let me simplify this. And that was something that I had done during engineering. When I was troubleshooting something, I
Uh,
was so good at it because I would simplify things and then build up. And I was like, so I started looking at the brain and I said, okay, like I started researching anomalies, like what are things that are unexplained? And I started looking at things like amputees. Like over 80% of amputees still experience pain. And it's like 80%, that's not a fluke.
no.
Like that's the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Or even one thing that was just like mind blowing was people with multiple personality disorder. That it's been
Oh.
shown that people with multiple MPD, or now DID, dissociative identity disorder, but when they're in different personalities, they can have different ailments, different pain, different asthma, allergies, body temperature.
Wow.
And I was like, this makes no sense. Like this goes with nothing
Yeah.
regarding, like this makes no sense. And so that's when I was like, well, wait a second. If amputees can still experience pain, people with multiple personality disorder. And so I started doing all of the technical research where I was looking at like the nociceptors and spinal thalamic pathway and the somatosensory cortex, and there's different parts of the brain and thalamus, and going, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And honestly, incredible how everything works. But if I just simplified it, so I just kept simplifying, and I said, okay, if we look at emotions for a moment, I said, how much can emotions really affect the physical body? We know that emotions affect the body. And I was like, yeah, somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red. We know that. We've all heard that stress affects the body, and even stress increases oxidative stress. So we know that. And when we look at oxidative stress, we're looking at, an uneven amount of electrons in cells. And so just, again, simplifying it though, looking at emotions and going, okay, embarrassment, red face, nervous stomach, or even, people feeling like they're having an anxiety attack. We know that. Like that's proven, well-known, common sense.
Right.
And I go, yeah, but how much can stress or the emotions really affect the physical body? And I started looking at it and going, wait a second. There's things like bored to death, scared to death, or even the widowhood effect. And I thought, well, wait a second. If we can freaking die from boredom, what about the rest of the emotions? What are they doing? Right? And you could see that if emotions could affect us to the point of death. I mean, even unfortunately, like if you look at an infant that doesn't get enough love can die, or a senior who loses a spouse, they can die. Widowhood effect. I mean, that's well known. And so, but then when I started going, okay, wait a second, freaking boredom can kill us. Scared to death can kill us. What about abandonment? What about rejection? What about hurt? What about like all of these other emotions? What are they doing? Because if we know that embarrassment, anxiety, lack of love, and a nervous stomach, if we and boredom can even kill us, what about, it doesn't make sense that these 7 emotions affect our body and the rest don't. And or even on a positive note, I mean, sexual thought creates a physical sexual response. We all know that. And it's consistent. Or procreation would be pretty freaking hard,
Yeah.
And so that's what I really started looking at, is going, okay, what's going on at a deeper level in the mind? And I would have said at the time with my injury, I had an accident. I had a car accident and a fall. And I would have also said, I was happy at the time I was injured, and I was. And I would have said my biggest stress is the fact that I'm now injured.
Yeah, exactly.
So, of course I'm going, it can't possibly be my mind, because I was happy, I was good, and I had an accident. And yet, when I started really understanding the subconscious mind and understanding that emotions can get stuck in the subconscious mind, and that past events and all those things, I started realizing that there was a lot more there.
Wow. Okay, so then what next? How did you explore that, or how did you figure out what to start doing differently?
Basically what I did is I said, okay, well, if there was emotions that were affecting my body, what would they be? And again, as I was working on it, I was still very, very skeptical. Like, it can't really be this. But the more I looked at everything, the more it just made logical sense. I mean, like I started looking at other things like, you've probably heard before that our skeleton, so our body is constantly repairing and replacing cells, even our bones, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, wait a second. If even our skeleton and our bones, like if everything's constantly repairing and regenerating itself, then how is it possible for somebody to have that old football injury from high school 40 years ago?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And then, and I started looking at all of the atoms. So even the atoms being replaced in the body. And that was back from like the 1950s. And I was like, more and more when I looked at it, because at the time I was like trying to take supplements and eat a diet that would help my body to heal itself. And I was like, but the body is already healing itself. The body is always constantly in a place of repairing and regeneration and all of that. And so that's what it kept, everything kept leading me back to the mind. And so that's what I started looking at is, okay, what could have happened? What emotions could I have going on that could be impacting this? Which again, emphasizing that I'd been in an accident. How could it even be possible? And yet what I came to find, everything happens for a reason. It really, really does. And so, but that's what I did is I started uncovering things that happened. And then I worked on really shifting them, and my body healed from something it wasn't supposed to heal from. And now, I mean, I can run. I haven't had pain since I got better for 10 years. I can run, I can lift weights, and life is amazing.
So what did you start doing? I'm sure you kept adding to your protocol or whatever, little by little, but where did you even start? Or what did any given day look like?
It had been any given day, it was interesting. When I was working on getting better, first and foremost, I was in so much pain that I didn't sleep much. So if I fell asleep, but then if I have moved at all, I mean, more pain would just shoot through my body.
Oh yeah.
Even though I was on morphine, it was a lot. So I was like researching and trying all these things. And I got into like looking at metaphysics and quantum physics and positive thinking and all these things. Yep. And so initially I tried things like meditation. So I meditated for like years and that didn't work. And then I did like affirmations. I mean, I was literally like writing thousands of affirmations like a day, and that didn't work. And it was, even to the point of a lot of people think that the placebo works because you believe it'll work. And there's a theory that, okay, well, people believe it's going to work, and so it works. But that's not quite the case, because are you familiar with the open label placebo?
Oh, when you know that you're getting the placebo, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the open label placebo has even been shown to work where you get it, and the doctor knows that you're getting it, and there's still results.
Wow.
And so, but initially it was really looking at, I did everything wrong at first.
Okay.
Basically, I was writing affirmations. I was trying to convince myself I was already healed. I was working on, just the power of belief and all of these things. And what it really came down to was then basically working on changing the way I feel. And so like one thing that I did is I love music. And when you're in a place where you're feeling really down and to me, what I did was I would listen to certain songs and I would purposely make myself feel happy. So that was one of the things that I did. And that's something that I even teach to this day, because it's kind of like, how songs, they can make you feel a different way.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And if you think about the alphabet, right? You think about the alphabet, how much the alphabet helped us all learn it much quicker.
Oh yeah.
Right? Without the ABC song, we'd all been screwed.
Oh,
maybe like
yeah.
in second grade. Not really, but it would have taken us longer to learn, right?
Yeah, and it takes us back to whatever we experienced when we first heard that song, too.
Exactly. And because the emotions.
Yep.
And so what I did is instead of basically what I did is I did that purposely. Is
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to music to purposely lift myself. Like I would listen to one thing I would listen to was Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves. Okay, now imagine for a moment I'm in extreme pain. I'm on morphine and I don't even want to move or breathe, you know, and here I am listening to Walking on Sunshine and bringing in feelings of feeling good. Or even You Too, It's a Beautiful Day. I listened to that song many, many times. And, you know, if you think about it, at the time, I did not feel like it was a beautiful day. And yet
No.
there I was working on really creating that change. A lot of times in our world, people are waiting for their life to change
Mm-hmm.
before they change on the inside. They're like, okay, when something good happens, then I'll change. But
Right.
what happened is this: it became a life-changing gift because our thoughts help create our lives. And I know for some people that's a bit esoteric,
Mm-hmm.
but when you stop and think about it for a moment, I mean, even like Einstein would say, imagination is the preview of life's coming attraction.
Right.
Or if we look at traditional psychology, where in traditional psychology, we know that people have patterns. Like people will maybe marry somebody who's like their mother or father,
Oh, yeah.
or right?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, yeah. Or even you've probably heard of this stereotype where somebody has an abusive father. Maybe a woman has an abusive father. She leaves him, finds the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, blah, blah, blah. Like those
Yep.
patterns create. And
Right.
our minds create our life more than we realize. And so what's awesome is that even today, when I work with people and I'll help them to create a radical shift, you know, release pain in minutes with their
Mm-hmm.
mind, it also changes our life. And I think that it was life-changing, absolutely life-changing when you take what's in your mind. So in other words, like I worked with my mind to then change what was in it
Mm-hmm.
to heal my body, but it also simultaneously changed my life. And it's incredible.
Yeah. So it's really more like a lot of people talk about how it's about your thoughts, but it's not like just what you're thinking, like the words, like the affirmations you were talking about, but really about the feelings. And is that because it helps raise endorphins, or why is that it's the feelings that really make the difference?
The feelings activate more energy. And not only
Mm.
that, when we feel something, like if you think about it, very simply put, okay, if I'm thinking fear, oh, fearful thoughts, how much is that activating my nervous system?
Mm.
But if I'm feeling fear, how much is that activating my nervous system?
Yeah, major way.
Now, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if I'm thinking thoughts of, oh, there's this thought and there's this thought, that's not really affecting my body. But if I'm thinking fearful, that's going into my body. So we need emotions because emotions are when the nervous system gets impacted.
Ah, that makes sense. Okay.
And that's also when the neurons fire, of course, throughout the body, is because that's activating the nervous system. And then the more the neurons fire, that's what has to do with really shifting the energy of the body. And
Oh.
um, so said another way, even if we think and put it in perspective of oxidative stress,
Mm-hmm.
we know that stress impacts and increases oxidative stress for cells.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, it's not just thinking negative thoughts, it's feeling that negativity is what causes that. And
Oh.
so that's why it's really important to bring in the positive and also to release the negative.
Mm. Because the all that basically raises inflammation with the oxidative stress, and that's why the pain and whatnot.
Not only that, but if you think about it, oxidative stress is literally linked to, I mean, all kind of chronic pain,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, cancer, MS, rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, you name it, diabetes, I mean, aging. premature aging.
Yeah.
Oxidative stress is literally linked to like every major thing. You can see that there's, it's oxidative stress is a main issue. And we can
Mhm.
look at it and see that there are study after study that shows ongoing stress increases oxidative stress. And if you think about it, oxidative stress, and you think about the cells of the body, very simply put, I like to keep everything super simple.
Mhm.
If you think about oxidative stress, you can think of it as a cell that's missing an electron, which more easier said would be to think about a car that's missing a tire. And if that
Mm.
car is missing a tire, it's like it's running around crashing into other cars wanting to
Yeah.
steal a tire from it.
Yeah.
and so and so as you could see on a cellular level, that becomes damaging, where we have a cell that's running around crashing into other things wanting to get an electron, because that's what happens is when it's uneven, it's imbalanced, and it's wanting
Mm.
to then steal an electron to then become balanced and become whole. And so if you imagine cars that were running around with missing a tire crashing into other cars, you can see that that could be a breakdown of a system. And so
Yeah, absolutely. So, so then basically we're trying to keep our emotions high. We're listening to music. I'm guessing laughter is a part of this as well.
yes, and
Mhm.
if you think about it for a moment, it takes both. It takes bringing in the positive, and it
Mhm.
also takes getting rid of the negative, because it happens at an even deeper level. I mean, when you start to think about the awareness that about 90 to 94, 95% of our brain is subconscious, right?
Mhm.
And so it really has to do with how we're emotions, really coming back to emotions. I mean, you know, if you think about stress for a moment, we clump stress into one ball. We all stress affects the body.
Yeah.
But what is stress? I mean, stress is really negative emotions.
Mhm.
And then if we break it down further, we can see that negative emotions impact the body differently. Again, going back to the simplicity of embarrassed, is obviously much different than an anxiety attack, which is much different than a sexual thought.
Mhm.
Each of them affects the body much differently. And so if we can not clump everything into stress and instead target the specific things, that's what's powerful. Kind of like, if we look at type 2 diabetes, okay, a study was just done, I think about 2 years ago, where they were showing a link between loneliness and type 2 diabetes, where there was
Mm.
a large research study that was done, and they were able to see this connection. And so basically what I do in helping other people is
Yeah.
exactly that, is I help them to target that specific emotion that's affecting them and help them to shift it. I mean, could you imagine if we had to have zero stress at all and we had to be absolutely perfect?
Yeah.
um, we don't need that, but we need to target the specific thing and shift that to make that change. So in other words, if somebody's having an anxiety attack, like, and they go, oh, well, I should probably heal my wound from 3 years old. No, let's work on the anxiety that you're feeling right now. What's
Mm.
what's going on? What are you feeling? And so um, for each person, it's a different thing, but it's really about targeting that specific emotion, what's going on, and help them to shift that. And by the way, when I got better, I thought, going from wheelchair and walker, cane, all of that, I mean, being a complete train wreck. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Really.
was about 32 pounds lighter than I am right now, and I'm a
Mm.
size 2 right now.
Yeah.
I was, I mean, my
Okay.
legs were like the same size as my arms, and I was a mess. And I thought, after I got better, I thought people are going to think this is crazy, like how you heal with the mind. It's so
Mhm.
esoteric. So what I started doing is I started coaching others to get results, and I would do it under thermography. So are you familiar with thermography by chance?
Yeah, a little bit as far as detecting like breast cancer, things like that.
Exactly, right?
Mhm.
So what I did is I started using thermography in a different way,
Mm.
whereas I would take people who are experiencing, let's say they have, chronic neck pain,
Okay.
or, chronic shoulder pain. And what I would do is I worked with Dr. Hillary Smith, and she does thermography all day. And I had her put somebody under the thermography. And so you can see on the scan where like their neck, if they have neck pain, it shows all red. Or
Oh,
if they
yeah.
have shoulder pain, it shows all red. And you can see the pain, coming from that on the scan.
Mm.
And then I would coach people. And as I coach them to use their mind, you'll literally see the scan turn from red to green as their pain goes away.
Oh, wow.
And it's just helping them to use their mind.
And then they're seeing the results of their mind.
And they can see the results. Not only that, but I have taken people, like even on my podcast. So I have a podcast, and I've taken people like one woman episode, I think it's episode like 10 or something like that. She had a tumor in her throat.
Mm-hmm.
And her and I worked for an hour, and she had just had an MRI. So she had an MRI. The tumor was 5 millimeter.
Okay.
Her and I worked for an hour. She went to go in for surgery the next day. She showed up for surgery the next day. The tumor was gone.
Oh.
And the ENT is like, I have never seen anything like this in my 30 years. And you should see, because like there's like this video of her standing outside the hospital crying. And then she's like, I just got a refund on my $1,200 copay, and I'm going to go shopping.
Oh my goodness.
So, right. It's
Yeah.
not just pain. I see the most incredible things. And I have people who are supine, bedridden, who are now running marathons. And our minds are so incredible. We have magic in our minds.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. That is incredible. Well, so how, or do you have another story you wanted to tell?
I was just going to say, so it's really about both. It's about bringing in the
Mhm.
positive. It's also about targeting the specific negative and getting rid of that.
Right. Does it seem like people have a specific negative that's kind of sticking with them over time, that then that's the one that they address and things start to get a little bit better, or it's a variety?
It's always something specific.
Mhm.
And that's how I'm able to get such fast results with people, is I zero in on that specific thing. And from some people, it's from childhood. Like on my last podcast that I just did, there was a woman that I worked with who had been very abused and beaten as a kid. And hers were stemming from that, and she didn't even realize it.
Oh.
And there's other people that, maybe it's, it has to do with an event that happened. I mean, there are all different types of things. One thing that is a misconception, though, is that a lot of people think that it does have to do with a trauma. Like it always has to do with a trauma that happened, but that's not necessarily the case. Like
Okay.
on one of my episodes, I worked with a guy who wanted to cheat on his wife. And he had guilt regarding it, but he also had a lot of thoughts of cheating and all of that. And so his pain that he was experiencing, that's what we worked on, was his guilt over wanting to cheat, even though he didn't actually cheat. There was a lot of guilt there about wanting to, and a lot of also desire to cheat. And that's what came up for him. So it's interesting. It can be a trauma, but it can also just be something that's happening in day to day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people encounter all kinds of new stresses on a regular basis, especially this year has been more challenging. But it's so good to know that we can overcome that and learn to use our minds so that we don't succumb to illness from any stress that comes along.
Absolutely. And this is what is such a gift. And this is the way I see it on a spiritual level, is it's like God, the universe, divine, whatever you want to call it, created our bodies. It's almost like our illness is like a check engine light, if you will. Like knowing our thoughts help create our lives. It's like, imagine somebody has deep feelings of criticism in their mind, and that's affecting their body. And what happens is that then they keep attracting more criticism in their life, and they're attracting more in their life and more in their life and more in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And so their life is like that. And then they don't realize that it's also connected to their pain in their body. And so what happens all the time is, like, let's say somebody comes to me and they have some type of pain or ailment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, oh, well, it's connected to this pattern of criticism. Let's change it. So then we shift that, and it shifts their life also. So the pattern of criticism that was going in their life, they stop attracting that same pattern in their life. And so it becomes a life-changing gift. And so the way I like to look at it is, it's like universe or God, divine, whatever you want to call it. It's like a check engine light. Like if we're driving through life and we have like a bumpy road and there's things going on, and it's like we have this check engine light that says, like, change, or this GPS is saying left turn, do something different. And we're like, shut up, body.
Yeah.
But instead, if we said, okay, what's my body really trying to tell me? What do I really need to change? And instead of trying to drug it or cut the body part out, whatever it is, we go, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? What's really going on in my subconscious mind?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to change? And then we target that specific thing and change it. And then it's like the check engine light, the paint goes away, it heals itself, it changes. And it's just truly incredible what our minds are capable of.
Wow. Yeah, and I imagine then there's less stress because the stress was coming from whatever it is, the criticism or the self-criticism or attracting more criticism.
Exactly.
Without all that criticism, life becomes a lot easier.
Exactly. The kind of the other way to look at it also is kind of like, have you ever done this before where you think, like, maybe you think about buying a new car or something and you start seeing it everywhere?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So on a positive note, that happens, but then
Yeah.
also, of course, on a negative note, when we quote unquote buy into things like self-criticism or hurt or whatever, and that's in our subconscious mind, we see it everywhere. Or even, I mean, I've worked with women before who felt like all men are alcoholics or all men are abusive. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
obviously all men aren't abusive or, or alcoholics, but because they experienced it over and over and over, and it's everywhere that they go.
Yeah.
Like the car, except for a car, seeing a car is a much better positive thing than of course, seeing all men are abusive or something like that. But so the incredible thing is just that when we heal our bodies, we change our lives when we start to understand what's going on in our subconscious mind. Because again, the idea, that a lot of us, we feel like our conscious mind is in control of our life, that consciously we're in control.
Yeah.
And when we start to really realize our subconscious mind being 90 to 95% of our brain cells, there's a lot of things that are going on below consciousness that we don't even realize. And so it's becoming conscious of that,
Yeah, we don't like to feel like we're not in control. But yeah, if we were to address all those underlying thoughts, or like the subconscious, then somehow life gets easier and you don't feel like you're so overwhelmed all the time.
Exactly. Not only that, but when you start to think about it, the way as a culture that we look at the brain is not right. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, I mean, suicide is a leading cause of death. Second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 34 and 35 to 55. It's the fourth leading cause of death. Now, if we looked at dogs and we said, dogs' leading cause of death is killing themselves, or monkeys, their leading cause of death is killing themselves, we'd be like, what is going on in the world? Something is off.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are with hundreds of millions of people on antidepressants, 1.5 billion people live in pain.
Wow.
And when you think about it for a moment, 1.5 billion people, for me to get better, I had to do something different than 1.5 billion people are doing. And I kept thinking that to myself,
Right.
Okay, if I want to get better, if I want to heal from something that's incurable, I have to do something different than 1.5 billion people are doing.
Wow.
And,
You found
it totally. And when you think about it for a moment, our health issue, like our healthcare in our world, is just getting worse and worse. I mean, even in the year 2000, it was projected that more people would continue to get sick, more people would have chronic pain, and it's happening. And it's like, if somebody's on a budget and they're going more and more and more and more in debt. You think, hey, that's a bad plan. Whatever you're doing, change it. Stop
Yes.
it. You know? And so when you look at healthcare and you go, okay, we know more and more people are going to get sick and not get better. And even when you look at it for a moment, I mean, people are no longer, for the last 3 years now, people in the US are not living longer, they're living shorter.
Right.
Like,
Something is,
we're doing something wrong. Like, if you don't
yeah.
have a budget and you're going more and more and more in debt, change it. You got to change
Right.
something. If
Yeah.
you're having sickness is going more and more and more and more, we can't keep doing more and more and more of the same and expect it to get better. We have to do something different. And so, and so that's what I started doing, and it's life changing.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, where do you suggest people start if they're like, I think something about my mind or some way that I'm thinking is impacting my health? I mean, like, what's one little small thing to
The
start
first thing I would do is, if they have that thought, is give themselves a pat on the back, because most of us, like me,
with?
would think it can't possibly be my mind.
Right.
And yet every single ailment that I've ever seen before has a mind component to it, even mine that was in an accident. And so first thing, give yourself a pat on the back if you're thinking about that, because it's awesome awareness. And it was something that it took me a while to get to. The other thing I would say is a few things. I mean, I would say that finding a song that helps you to feel more happy and getting it in and feeling it. So I would definitely do that. Also, I would say that, you know, getting a vision for your life. So when you have a vision of something you want in life, that can help you be happier as well. I wouldn't recommend diving first into the negative. I just wouldn't. There's a way you want to do it. And kind of like, if a lot of negativity is affecting your body, do you want to get your mind into there first? Not really. First, I would start bringing in the positive and starting to feel that. And also, I mean, if it's okay, like, I mean, people can, there's a shift technique that, you know, there's different things that you can do to help heal. And even on my website, there's a thing that right now that I have for people, because there's so much stress going on. So whether somebody's shifting for a health issue or just with stress with COVID, that's something that people can do also. But I would say that, you know, bringing in the positive, getting a vision for your life is a start. And starting to focus on feeling happier and getting those positive emotions in, I would say is the start of it.
Great. Thank you. So, on that note, what's your website? Where can people find you? I know you said you have a podcast. Where can people find you online?
Absolutely. At my website, brandygillmore.com. And Brandy is with a Y, Gilmore is with 2 L's, and my podcast is there also. It's called Heal Yourself, Change Your Life. And I'll take people out of pain in minutes. And also right now, because of COVID, like, I have some extra special gifts that people can use to help change their mindset and stuff like that. So that's there too. And, you know, honestly, we're all so incredible, and we really need to start embracing that. You know, our minds are miraculous.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all your wisdom.
Betsy, thank you for what you do. I think it's such great timing, not only with COVID going on, but just because, again, health is going in the, you know, sickness and all of that's been growing and growing. And now here we are, even in this pandemic, to really emphasize the importance of waking up to the awareness of how amazing we are. But I love what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. You're wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to know that there is something we can do about it. So
it is, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye.